Hello everyone. This is 1940 when Britain stood alone in World War II. This is attempt number 3. It's from Timeline, World History Documentaries. It's a new channel. So, if we like it, I'll check them out. I got about a minute and a half into the other two videos. I lost my internet for about 25 minutes on one. And the other one, it said I was 3 videos in, or it covered the other thing. I couldn't find any of these timelines that they were talking about. So I'm just going to cover, I think, each one kind of individually and go from there. I know there are timelines on their playlist, but I couldn't find this one, and I just got tired of looking. So I will just say this: from the minute and a half that I looked, I saw someone gunned down and someone on fire. So I would heavily suggest that viewer discretion is certainly advised, which is something I don't normally say. But after seeing those two things, I thought, oof. So, on with the video.
War ravaging the East since 1937 and Japan's invasion of China reached Europe on the 1st of September 1939 with Germany's invasion of Poland. It became global on the 7th of December 1941 when Japanese aircraft attacked the American naval base at Pearl Harbor. It touched every continent and lasted for 6 years. It ended with a new weapon for a new age. This is the history of the greatest of all man-made events. These men are part of that history. They are eyewitnesses to the triumphs and tragedies of the war wherever it was fought. Their testimony is part of the story of how our world was made.
It's all new for me right here.
By those who could pay and those who could no longer meet. The price of empire.
By the way, this is a 50-minute video, so I'm going to break it into 3 16-minute sections, a little over 16 minutes, just so you know.
In episode 3 of The Price of Empire, the armed forces of Hitler's Germany swept without check across Europe. In September 1939, with their Soviet ally, they had destroyed Poland as an independent state. In 1940, Norway, Denmark, the Netherlands, Luxembourg and Belgium were conquered and France capitulated. Six months after the fall of France, Vyacheslav Molotov, the Soviet foreign minister, visited Berlin to discuss how the world was to be divided following victory, because the war is all but over, Molotov was told, and Britain is beaten. You say that England is defeated, Molotov said to his opposite number, von Ribbentrop. Then why are we sitting here in this air raid shelter?
Yeah.
The answer to Molotov's question is that Britain was not beaten.
What a great line.
But she was alone. With the end of the Spanish Civil War, both of the countries of the Iberian Peninsula were controlled by fascist dictators. Italy had been ruled by such a dictator, Benito Mussolini, for more than 15 years, and now the rest of Western Europe, most of Scandinavia, and much of Central and Eastern Europe was flying the swastika. East the Soviet Union under Joseph Stalin carefully observed the terms of its treaty with Hitler, to whom it shipped supplies of food and other materials. But the greatest empire in the world was undefeated and defiant. The Battle of Britain, their Prime Minister had told them, is about to begin. Defiance, however, does not come cheap. Banker to the world at the beginning of the 20th century, 50 years later, Britain would be the most indebted nation, to the tune of $40 billion. Food rationing had been progressively introduced since January 1940. Rationing had been introduced in Germany in August 1939, the month before the invasion of Poland. As the war went on, the vast majority of Britons, including more than half of the manual workers, had their own piece of land, their garden or their allotment. The British reliance on imported food was almost halved. But not everything in the British Isles was as spirited or good-hearted. The poet T.S. Eliot wrote to a friend, "We are involved in an enormous catastrophe, which includes a war."
If you love history, then you'll love History Hit. We have tons of exclusive documentaries about the most important people in history that you will not find anywhere else. From uncovering ancient Neolithic cultures to the dawn of the space race. History Hit has hundreds of exclusive documentaries.
He may have been thinking of the deliberate policy of misinformation designed to confuse spies and traitors, which spread fear through the population, spawning a whole catalogue of invasion alarms in which parachutists, variously dressed as nuns, priests and policemen, featured, not to mention those in sky blue uniforms with transparent parachutes who floated invisibly to Earth. As early as May the 12th, the tabloid Sunday Pictorial was asking if the government had considered training golfers in rifle shooting to eliminate stray parachutists.
These scenes, multiplied 100 times, show how our men are being prepared for the defense of Britain.
A German Swiss resident of the London borough of Kensington was arrested for puffing on his cigar and pointing the lighted end at the night sky. He was clearly signalling to enemy aircraft. Many stray dogs, less fortunate.
How the hell is an enemy aircraft going to be able to see just a cigar? The fire of a cigar. It must be coming in really low.
Were shot on suspicion of carrying messages. On the 23rd of May, Sir Oswald Mosley, who had led the British fascists during the 1930s with some huffing and puffing but little electoral success, was interned. On the 31st, General Ironside, Commander-in-Chief Home Forces, reported suspicious men moving at night all over the country. And on July the 2nd, he reported there is signalling going on all over the place. But he lamented that no evidence had been found of fifth column activities or weapons of mass destruction.
This powerful $99 drone is now available in the US. This is an extremely high-tech $5,000 drone. It was
Sure it is.
In fact, though many stories from death rays to parachuting nuns circulate to this day, the evidence to support them is as threadbare as evidence for the Tooth Fairy. Under pressure to form some sort of home defence, the Secretary for War, Anthony Eden, went on the radio on May the 14th to announce the formation of the Local Defence Volunteers, or LDV, said by some to stand for Look, Duck and Vanish.
This questionnaire is addressed to civilians who are not in armament factories or in government service. Have you joined the Local Defence Volunteers?
The The LDV formed groups associated with social and sporting clubs and factories. By July, 1.25 million men had joined, but they were not well supplied with weapons.
When they started to form the Home Guard, which was the LDV, I joined them. I was 15 when I joined them. We got a bit of this and a bit of that, and then finally you got your rifle. The ones we were given was a Ross rifle. It was a Canadian rifle that only held 5 rounds.
Churchill insisted that the LDV be renamed the Home Guard. Eden was annoyed. He had had 1 million LDV armbands printed.
Well, I was at school at Dulwich College and not working very hard because I was spending most of the evenings in the Home Guard as a dispatch rider and learning how to smoke and drink and all the rest of the things.
Jack White was keen to play his
I love that smile.
part in the Home Guard, but his application was rejected because, born the son of Russian Jews, he was classed as an alien. In the First World War, Jack White had been awarded the highest decoration for valour, the Victoria Cross. He was not classed as an enemy alien or interned. 2,000 aliens living near the coast were rounded up and others followed. Churchill said that it was necessary to collar the lot. In contradiction of its popular post-war image, the Home Guard was a serious reserve. It fired shots in anger, with several kills to its credit in anti-aircraft duties. Its patrols freed regular army units for other work, and it housed, or rather disguised, lethal groups of trained commando-style personnel tasked with murder and mayhem in the event of an invasion. Guard units also provided the enemy in training situations. More than one new recruit reported on being captured by First World War veterans more adept at soldiering than they were.
We did all sorts of clandestine things for about a month, and fighting against the Home Guard. And people thought the Home Guard was a joke, but they weren't. I was captured by them twice, and I thought I was a clever soldier. They were on the ball.
The plan for Britain's defence, agreed to on June the 12th, drew a line south from Edinburgh to the Medway, another west from below London to south of Bristol, an area further defined by a number of stop lines. Within these defined areas, anti-tank ditches were dug and concrete pillboxes built, and everyone waited. Winston Churchill waited with unquenchable optimism. His mother was American. His belief in the onward march of the English-speaking peoples was well documented, and his optimism was sustained not by confidence in British arms, but by the conviction that America, inextinguishable and inexhaustible, would come in. The greatest boost.
I think that England, Britain, standing alone for that time period and not giving up. I know America gets credited for a lot of things, but I think that stretch where they were by themselves, I think is more impressive than just the Americans getting involved. Because I mean, they'd already been through 3 years at that point, 2 years, and everything was just working against them. The only thing that held them in it was Churchill and their own pride, not wanting to be taken over by a lunatic. So I think that there's not enough credit, at least from me, my understanding. You don't hear enough credit for their I'll just call it stubbornness to get beat. Like, just the refusal. No, we're not going to get beat. I don't think there's enough of that gets mentioned, because it always gets glossed over here. You know, yeah, they were alone, and then America got involved because of Pearl Harbor. Like, it wasn't that quick, though. It wasn't just that fast. So props to them, definitely, because if they would have just given up, it's a much different world.
To Churchill's belief in salvation across the Atlantic came in August, in one of the key moments of the war. The American Congress would not allow neutrality to be breached by the supply of war material to either side without payment. Opinion polls registered American support for involvement in the war at a mere 8%. Roosevelt found a way. It was called Lend-Lease. Payment in kind. Britain made over naval bases in her West Indian possessions to the United States, or payment later, and Britain was obliged to pay. It took 50 years. Churchill called Lend-Lease a long step towards America coming in on our side. 2 days after the signing of the Lend-Lease agreement, the 15th of August, was Adlertag, Eagle Day, which the head of the Luftwaffe, Reichsmarschall Göring, nominated as the start of the critical phase of the Battle of Britain, the German air offensive that sought to achieve control of the skies over southern England, preparatory to an invasion. In one respect, the advantage had already moved from Germany to Great Britain. In early 1940, Britain had been producing 256 fighter planes a month. Winston Churchill, recognizing the urgency of improving production, appointed the Anglo-Canadian newspaper proprietor Lord Beaverbrook Minister for Aircraft Production.
And so I beg all of you, everywhere, to speed the tank, speed the defenses of Britain.
Under Beaverbrook's management, production for the month of July climbed to 496. An article in Time magazine in 1940 drew attention to his record and presciently noted that this war is a war of machines. It will be won on the assembly line.
Yeah.
Importantly, the British assembly line was not just turning out lots of aircraft, but good ones. These were the Hurricanes.
It defeats the purpose to just turn out aircraft just to throw them in the sky and let them get beat. That's just a waste of time and money. You got to make them good.
Spitfires that would write their names into the history books. Britain deployed other tools that would be vital in the battle ahead. Cryptologists famously installed at Bletchley Park, a country estate outside of London, decoded Luftwaffe signals that gave warning of planned sorties. The work of a British meteorologist between the wars was critical in developing the screen of radar stations that was vital to British air defence. His name was Robert Watson Watt, and it was under his leadership that the design and installation of aircraft detection and tracking stations, called Chain Home, made possible the early warning of incoming squadrons. It was not, of course, all high-tech. The defence of Britain also relied on the keen eyes of 30,000 watchers peering through binoculars at 1,000 posts throughout the country. Like Britain, Germany had first-rate aircraft, but they were not first-rate for the task ahead. They had been developed to support battlefield operations. Luftwaffe had no heavy bombers, and the Vierstuker was, as we shall see, to prove almost useless. The Luftwaffe's commander, Hermann Göring, had been a Nazi Party faithful from the start. A decorated fighter ace in the First World War, he had been injured in Hitler's abortive attempt to seize power, the so-called Beer Hall Putsch.
I'm going to go ahead and end this here. Knock this video out here. And then we'll come back and you know what I'm saying. Like and subscribe. Or threats. Have a good day. Have a good night.